he was ready to throw down at the 7-on-7 tournament in Atlanta over the weekend. It certainly turned heads with the way that he reacted to a member of the top shelf performance team who apparently tried to get a cheap shot in. It didn't work as he was taking on multiple men in his hocus pocus hat and all.
Yeah.
It was Will Compton who pointed out, it's like, man, he is the one guy who will not take off the hat on the roller coaster. You can't even get it off in the fight here with Cam Newton. And I think multiple things that come to mind here, Chad.
Yeah.
Multiple things. Number one, the 7-on-7 tournament.
Well,
you're doing this at the camp.
Yeah, but also the guy in the white shirt that comes up with the sucker kidney punch in the end. The best part of it is where he flings the guy out from underneath the tent and then just starts ragdolling another guy. But then the dude that comes into the end, well, he throws a punch. It looks like he hits his buddy. I feel like he's against Cam, but he throws the punch and actually ends up hitting his friend.
Yeah, and they've been talking trash leading up to this, of course. And that team, by the way, that went after Cam ended up winning the tournament. And then after the tournament, said they're capable of, quote-unquote, standing on business if things get chippy, just like Newton. So Newton responded and commented and said, love in all caps.
And they also spoke with TMZ, the two guys involved in the fight, and said that Cam Newton was chirping him from the start of. He said he got out of his car, and he kept the whole weekend saying, what are we betting?
Totally believable, by the way.
And he says, I'm not going to bet you. And he says, I got enough money to lose. I'll bet you whatever you want. And it was just a nonstop build up to this physical altercation.
Then the nonstop reaction. You had Shannon Sharp and Chad Ochocinco, Chad Johnson, on the Nightcap podcast, which is getting great reviews.
Yeah, they're crushing it.
And that their reaction was, how dare you disrespect Cam Newton when other quarterbacks, some of the greatest, you wouldn't dare disrespect.
You know what? I tell you what you've never seen. Peyton and Eli been having a camp for 20-something years. You ain't never seen no kids be disrespectful to Peyton and Eli.
No.
Tell me the footage. Tell me the footage that you've seen out there. Show it to me. What Peyton or Eli asked these kids, or the Drew Brees, because a lot of times they take up a lot of these pro quarterbacks and sometimes upper-level college quarterbacks. Show me the footage. It's us because we think it's cute. I went out there, man, I told Cal to shut up. I told him he was trash. I told him he was garbage. Y'all think that's cute. It's not. It's not. And you wonder why. I don't. I've been stopped wondering.
Right.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's really embarrassing that somebody take time out of their day, out of their schedule, out of their life, and try to give back. And you disrespectful, ungrateful. Man, Cam, like I told you, Cam way better than me.
Yeah.
Because I don't have patience for my own kids to be disrespectful. I'll be damned if I'm gonna let somebody else's kid disrespect me. And I'm taking time out of those are my blood.
Right.
I got an obligation when they're coming up, but I had an obligation to tell them what's right and wrong.
Right.
And it's always gonna be yes, sir, no, sir.
Mm-hmm.
My kids to this day, somebody older than them is yes, sir, is no, sir. It's yes, ma'am, no, ma'am.
Right. And knowing
kids, hey, Ocho, my kids, they might curse. Oh, I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm still dad now. I know you grown, but be careful now. Hey, SOB, don't be letting SOBs and mofos coming out your mouth all kind of how now.
Yeah, my kids curse. I know they curse. Obviously, they all goddamn grown, but they have yet to curse in front of me. They have yet to curse in front of me. But the thing again, and knowing Cam like I know Cam, despite the incident today, despite the disrespect from whatever team he had an issue with, he's still going to put it on. He's still going to continue to have those camps to allow those kids to showcase their talents and be seen, to work on their craft, to get better. Just knowing Cam like I do. He's not going to allow this to bother him.
And it won't bother him, but knowing Cam Newton like we know him, he's going to continue to talk trash.
Yeah.
That's what he's done in previous in previous settings like this. And you have two sides to this where videos emerged where someone wearing the Top Shelf Performance Team hoodie says something like, I'm going to say it, they can't hide the film now. You're non-throwing ass. Atlanta hero, quarterback cannot beat me. And that's whenever the fracas went viral.
My favorite part of that audio was 4 or 5 times Ocho Cinco trying to get a word in, and every time he thought that Shannon was done, he'd start to talk, and then Shannon would go right back to ranting about it. And here's also the reason why Peyton and Eli don't have a lot of video of guys disrespecting them, because Peyton and Eli treat people with respect.
Right.
It's a different setup. I don't think Archie Manning is getting out of a car talking about how much richer he is than some high school coach and starting a fight with them and provoking them the whole time and talking trash to them. It's a very, very different setup with what Cam Newton is doing. And we've got video of Cam Newton jawing with a high school kid. Now, that kid needs to be smacked.
Yeah.
I'm watching that video, and I'm thinking, dude, shut up. This is an NFL quarterback
who's
you're talking to.
trash back to him.
Yeah, and then the NFL quarterback is saying stuff back, but the kids don't need to be going up and talking trash. I get that part of it with Shannon Sharpe. And this is two different things.
Well, this is back from 2021.
Right.
Cam Newton is heckled by a player at his own camp.
You ass. You're a free agent. You're a free agent. I'm rich. You're a free agent. You about to be poor. I'm rich. You about to be poor. I'm rich. You about to be poor. I'm rich. You're a free agent. I'm rich. You're a free agent. I'm rich. He's a free agent. Where your daddy is? Let me talk to your dad. Let me talk to your dad. Where's your dad? You're a free agent. Where's your dad? You're a free agent. You're a free agent. You ass. Talk to. Let me. Where's your dad? Where's your pop? You ass. Where's your dad?
Now, I'm rich is probably use anything but that as a comeback, and that could be just your typical back and forth banter. But the fact is, this is not anything new regarding Cam Newton. He's
it's not. And look, that kid is annoying.
Sure.
In that video, and should not be talking to anyone the way that he is. But Cam Newton is the one also
how did
engaging
it get to
in
that
this
level,
stuff.
though?
Exactly. What all was said before that.
I also will say this: there is a dumbass tax. If you're going to go at Cam Newton and you're going to start talking trash, expect a result similar to what we just saw. How many men were on trying to get after Cam Newton here?
It looked
while he's wearing a witch's hat?
Yeah, and couldn't knock it off his head.
I know.
And he's knocking it off. But Cam Newton's a dumbass, too. The whole thing is dumb. I just watch all of this, and I think
there's
this
one
is
guy
so
who's
stupid.
Who's looks superhuman, though.
Oh, of course.
So you're going to go at that.
To go physically fight him is stupid.
Yeah.
But let's also let's not get away from the Shannon Sharpe saying you don't see this happen to Peyton and Eli. Peyton and Eli aren't walking up to kids or coaches of youth teams and talking smack about how much money they have and trying to lay bets down because they had the money to lose and these guys are all poor. That's not the trash talk they're going to engage in at these camps. So you don't have kids talking back and saying things like that to Peyton and Eli for that very reason.
And this was right after.
Cam invites some of this, but of course, if you're going to run at Cam Newton and try to get in a fight with him, that's going to be the result. So I just look at this whole situation and think there's a lot of dumbassery going on here with Cam talking about how rich he is and flaunting his money over these guys who don't have any money. Like that's cool in some way that he thinks. I don't know. The kid that was talking trash to him in that video from 2021, the whole thing is stupid.
Then it goes back. I mean, he was doing this in the NFL too. I mean, but again, there's one side of this where you can tell just how physically strong the guy is. And you can tell, the guys from Top Shelf Performance didn't look so good.
No.
It took several.
No.
But it also, I mean, if
was that kid calling him ass over and over?
I guess.
That's what he said over and over.
But again, what led to that? This is,
I know.
It's not, it's talking about disrespect. I mean, it goes both sides here. You mentioned you can bet on the fact that, you're going to get popped if you stand up to some of these players. Chad, betting was a topic today on Don't At Me with Dan Dockich, who's had some great guests, some great coaches on his show, and rightfully so. Had Brad Underwood on, and they got off into a discussion about gambling, sports betting apps, and how it is potentially going to ruin college basketball.
You said something interesting that I did not deal with. Maybe you did. I don't know, as a player and really as a coach, the gambling aspect of it. You've mentioned it twice. Are we? There's nothing to be done with that. The money is too big. Illinois has gambling. Indiana has gambling. Ohio has gambling. There's nothing you can do with that, right? How much do you talk to players about giving out information or involving themselves? I played against Toledo, and I found out later, we came back from a 17-point deficit in the second half, found out later one of Toledo's players was throwing the game. He got arrested and went to jail. Sammy Vajegas. How much do you talk about that stuff?
Quite a bit now.
Do you?
After the incidents that happened, I think the Big Ten, I was very proactive in trying to get injury reports out before the game now. Information is of value. Well, we're on a college campus, and if you see player A and he's your leading scorer and he's walking around campus in a boot, or a teammate tells his dad, "Hey, I don't think Johnny's playing today because he's, he hit his head in practice." Well, the dad goes to the coffee pot at his work and says, "Yeah, I talked to my son last night." And now all of a sudden in the pro sports, you can hide information. But there is a reason they have injury reports. And I think that's a start for us. You start thinking about all the prop bets, Dan. I mean, there'll be a day and a time where conceivably you could have two guys not jump for the jump ball because there's a prop bet on it. and I think anything that challenges the integrity of competition stinks. And we've had guys that have gotten very, very nasty text messages and so on because they missed a layup that didn't cover an over and under or whatever it was. I don't even. And that you can set the stands and bet. So I think it's a really a big concern of mine. It has been since the day I've really gotten the job, and you can't ever jeopardize the integrity of competition. And if we ever lose that, then our sport is done. And so we talk about it a great deal, and that's probably not a very good answer to a question that deserves a lot more thought and attention. But it's a big part of social media. It's a big part of sport. I mean, what's the biggest weekend of the year in Las Vegas? Is the opening weekend of the NCAA tournament. And it's just it's a real deal, and it's accessible. It's part of what we do, and whether we like it or not, we have to keep trying to educate our players on it. And so we talk about it a pretty good amount here.
Chad, first off, I really like him, Brad Underwood. Just listening to that answer, an interview.
Yeah.
Couple takeaways though. Don't be so naive that it's just starting to happen. That it wasn't already taking place prior to a sports betting app being available on a college campus or around the state that you may currently reside. He mentions potentially hiding information. It's already been happening, but here's the deal. Vegas already knows. Vegas already knows. They're already a play ahead by the time you actually get on your app and want to bet on a prop in-game. And if you want to say, oh, they may throw the game because, you got sports betting going on the props, again, that's certainly, I'm not naive enough to think it's not happening now. But what I will say is if they get caught, they'll face the same repercussions that we saw from the previous examples. By the way, Sammy Vajegas, what a name. From in the Toledo game that Dockich pointed out that was throwing games or whatever. Sammy Vajegas. But here's the deal.
It's the same as Camilo Vajegas, the golfer back in the day. It's the same Hispanic name where the two L's are pronounced Vajay instead of, it looks like Villegas.
Yes.
But it's Vajegas, yeah, I believe.
The nasty texts from fans, the tweets I'm sure he was also referencing there. People are idiots. Some fans are idiots. That's not going to stop just because we have all of a sudden you just remove the betting aspect of a game. Look at fantasy football, for instance. Delaney Walker, we would once read just hate for him if he didn't have more than whatever the prop was for fantasy football to get a certain player or a certain team owner over the top for playoffs late in the season. Jeopardize the integrity of the competition. I'm totally with him on this. But the biggest weekend in Vegas, that is the college basketball March Madness, that will continue to be the biggest weekend in Vegas, and it was previous to all of this. I don't think this has added all that much, as much of a jab or a punch or a death blow to the integrity of the sport or sports in college athletics. If anything, it's just opened everyone's eyes to the fact that, well, maybe the punishments are either too lax or too much. And all I do is look at Pete Rose in all of this. That's what I think. I don't think of the harsh punishments that should be being, just handed out here. I'm looking at the harshest and how little we discuss that in the grand scheme of things. I don't want to see players throwing games. But when it happens, how much these leagues and these conferences and these teams, the lengths they'll go to protect the quote-unquote integrity of the game, they will then deliver the death blow to said player, coach, or anyone. Just ask Alabama's baseball coach, formerly Alabama's baseball coach. 15-year show cause, I believe, in that.
Yeah.
And if he's hired, he's gone he has to sit at least 5 years, I believe. Yeah, not happening. And that's the overall point, is if you're caught, you're done. And if you're not caught, well, I'm sitting here saying it's definitely happening, and they're walking the tightrope.
Well, look, it's I totally understand a coach hating sports gambling. So I am sympathetic to Brad Underwood and every coach. It can't be a comfortable feeling, and they know the point spreads and the lines. Then it becomes a thing. Oh, you lost this many games as the favorite, or you did this, and you're judged based on those point spreads oftentimes by fans and maybe even by their own administration. So that's part of it that they don't like. And of course, any factor that could distract your team, your guys, from the ultimate goal of winning, but that also is just something that maybe they wouldn't have to deal with otherwise, you're not going to like it as a coach. So I don't disagree with anything he said from a coach's perspective. And obviously, sports are the best meritocracy, and it's what we love in America. We love a meritocracy where you're good because you're good. And the better players, better coaches survive, and those players and coaches win, and so on and so forth. And you want an even playing field. You want fair competition around. You don't want anyone mucking up the system of integrity in sports. All of that stuff is true. All of that stuff is fair from Brad Underwood. But Hutton's right. It's not going anywhere. It's never gone anywhere. Before sports betting apps on your phone were legal, people were still going to Vegas to bet on the NCAA tournament. That's long been a huge weekend for Vegas sports books.
Or your bookie.
And it's going to continue to happen, and it's always going to be that way. Now, the injury report part of it, he's right. College sports need a mandatory injury report. They do. I'll give you one example right now from another story that we'll tie in from yesterday. Kyle Filipowski supposedly is injured. I said on the show yesterday, I don't think he's injured. I think that they're being dramatic about it because he got his leg banged into, and he's going to play, and he's going to look fine in their next game. John Shire, after the game, said he twisted his ankle, that he has a sprained ankle because of it. Comes back in his press conference yesterday, says it's a knee injury. Then asked if they evaluated the knee. They said no, they haven't done anything to it. My guess is, as I said yesterday, he's fine, and he's going to play as long as he normally plays against Louisville. Point being, if you are betting on that game, you may have bet Louisville to cover because you don't think Kyle Filipowski's playing. If there's an injury report that you have to be honest about and put out there, that's going to help everyone. It's going to help. You're going to put out information that way so people aren't trying to back channel it and get info in other ways or paying for it or any of that. I'm totally with Coach Underwood when it comes to that. The way the NFL does their injury report, college football should do it. College basketball should do it also. I'm all for that part of what he said.
Well, consider, too, I mean, we all know it's not going away, but also the networks that are broadcasting these games are in partnerships or they own their own. ESPN Bet, for instance, with that partnership, and then just turning it over into ESPN Bets. And now you have all the different angles of streaming and everything else. We'll certainly see the aspect of sports betting everywhere.
Yeah, and I'll play devil's advocate and say that salary that Brad Underwood's making, I could look it up.
Sure.
I guarantee it's a lot of money. That salary that he's making and other coaches in major college basketball or college football, those aren't going down anytime soon. And a big reason for that is interest in the sport. And interest in the sport could be at an all-time high. Why? Because state after state is legalizing online sports gambling. It helps interest in the sport.
$4.2 million.
Which helps his $4.2 million salary. That's not going to be going down anytime soon. So it's one hand feeding the other. Obviously, no one wants games to be fixed or any of that to go on. But, you know, I was watching Lonnie Williams, the coach of the Pistons, get pissed off in a press conference after the game saying we're getting screwed over and over again by the officials. And it's happened time and time again this year. And he pointed to a play where it was a clear foul. His guy got taken out from the legs, and they end up stealing the ball, going down and winning the game, the other team. And he said it's inexcusable. I mean, go watch that play. It's inexcusable. And the NBA came back and said, yeah, we missed it. Their pool report after the game from the lead official said, we went back and watched it, and it was an egregious missed call that we didn't blow the whistle on. You don't want people to start thinking like they do in the NBA that the fix is in. You don't want it to go from, man, that ref had a bad night. There were way too many fouls on one team and not the other. You don't want to go from that to, oh, the fix is in. And that's what Brad Underwood's hinting at with sports. You don't want that to start happening. Of course not.
But if it does, you go to prison like Donaghy. Yep. Or you, if his example, you have two players that just don't jump for the ball. I mean, they would deliver the hammer on those players. Yeah. And it wouldn't just be the NCAA, by the way, or whoever's governing. It would be, the DA.
Yeah, it would be an immediate investigation if something really screwy like that happened, and the coaches couldn't explain it because they said, no, we told the guys to go jump at midcourt the way we do every game, and for whatever reason, neither one of them did it.
Yeah. Death blow there, and certainly one for the NCAA last Friday, Chad.
Oh, man.
So you live on the air when everything came down.
Yep.
And you have the judge, Judge Clifton Corker.
Still sounds made up.
I know. Who rules in favor of the state of Tennessee and Virginia instead of the NCAA for this injunction. And I'm reading through this, and I think it's pretty simple here. How does the NCAA continue to govern or try to investigate anything moving forward in regards to name, image, likeness? Because everything's on pause until the conclusion of this this suit, and they've already lost again. You had the attorney generals from the state of Tennessee, Jonathan Skrmetti and Jason Mayares from Virginia, and they gave their reaction to the judge's ruling.
Attorney General Skrmetti, I'll start with you on this because you've joined our show before and you had mentioned you're fighting on behalf of student athletes and prospective student athletes in Tennessee. So what does this ruling today, what does this mean for those student athletes and prospective student athletes in the state of Tennessee?
This means student athletes can get the best deal out there on NIL. They're able to talk to collectives before they make a decision. They're able to see what their opportunities are, what their options are, and make an informed choice. And nobody has to rules are clear. The rules are if they want to talk to a collective, they can talk to a collective.
And Attorney General Mayares, in the beginning, I think everyone knew, okay, they could see the path and the line as to why Tennessee was getting involved in this. But someone had the question, why Virginia also involved in this? What drew the state of Virginia into this lawsuit, into this fight on behalf of student athletes?
Well, I mean, we have several college athletic programs, obviously, in Virginia, but really what this has been is something that's been on my mind back when I was a state legislature. I actually put in legislation to help create what we now know as NIL before it was very well known. And the reality is the NCAA for years, for decades, in my opinion, have been exploiting these student athletes. They signed an $8.8 billion television contract with CBS Sports for just the men's basketball tournament. Students don't see a dime of that. And whether it is a basketball or football stadium or arena that's built in Tallahassee or built in Athens or Tuscaloosa, name Chapel Hill, the reality is so many student athletes put their blood, sweat, and tears into these programs. And for decades upon decades, they never received a dime. And so, my attitude has always been, let these students, if I was a computer science major in college and IBM wanted to reward me for my talents while I was still a student, everybody else would say, that's great. That's the American way. It's a freedom of contract issue. And for us, it's about empowering these students that have built so many of these programs. These are billions upon billions of dollars of revenue that's been generated. And so ever since NCAA versus Alston, the Supreme Court's indicated that the NCAA is really running afoul of our antitrust laws in the United States. And so we view ourselves as attorney generals as the people's protector. That means also protecting our student athletes, and it's about empowering them. And so we're very, very grateful for the preliminary injunction.
Find the full show there, the full interview online, outkick.com/watch. Scroll down and hit hot mic. Chad, a couple of takeaways here. Number one, the NCAA is the governing body. And they've just been told you cannot enforce rules, and you can't go retroactively
on NIL.
On NIL, yeah. Right? But also, they can't even enforce a rule on Michigan until you go through all these appeal process and you go through this long deal. But in regards to NIL, the second question I would have from the NCAA: why did you even go down this path right now, knowing that you had a punch and a KO by the Supreme Court in 2021 where you took a step back because you were afraid of lawsuits? And I don't blame you. But why is a governing body, knowing that this result was going to happen, where the judge said in the first ruling, where they didn't go through the injunction, they said, but if this continues, you're likely to win. Why continue? Why even start this fight if you know it's going to be a losing battle? Why come back in and act like you're going to retroactively govern when you simply said and stated, go through your conference, go through your school, go through your state laws, peace? It's just idiotic to me. And it almost feels like self-sabotage.
Yeah, it's a suicide mission.
Where you have Sankey and Petiti step up, and they're going to eventually form the rules and lay out some process, or you want to point to the federal government and say, please give us some guardrails here because we can't do anything about it.
Yeah, it feels like a suicide mission on the NCAA's behalf. I still do not understand the motivation behind all these investigations, and especially the one into Tennessee after Tennessee was so cooperative with them on everything else. It was odd, but the rest of the NCAA membership has Tennessee to thank for defeating the NCAA on this to where they're not going to be bothered anymore by it. Now, Charlie Baker sent out an email to all the membership yesterday off this ruling, and he said, as you may know, we made clear the NCAA fully supports the rights of student athletes to benefit from exercising their NIL rights, but expressed concern that granting this preliminary injunction would make what is currently a chaotic environment worse. You may have many questions, and we know you need to hear from us, but given the significance and the sweep of this decision, it's critical that our guidance to you and your colleagues on this ruling be accurate. Goes on to say, as I said at our convention, what's at stake is too important for any of us to stand by and hope it will just get better. And if we all do our part, get involved, do the work, and play the hand, we can continue to make progress on the large, complicated problems we face. We will be back to you on the ruling shortly. All of that to say, Charlie Baker is saying we can't do anything. So we know what's going on. We hear you. We're letting you know that we're aware that we've been defeated in court and that Tennessee and Virginia beat us on the issue of NIL, and we have no idea how to proceed. So we all got to get together and come up with guidelines and rules, and I'm going to continue to tell Congress to try to pass laws that'll help us out. But in the meantime, hold tight and do nothing because we legally can't do anything right now. That's the message from Charlie Baker.
You cannot even enforce your own rules.
That is the message from Charlie Baker right now.
And I think what we're going to see, Chad, is this open up the door for the universities, the programs to do what they're already doing, but to do it just straight up where everyone can see, just like players getting paid. Couldn't you just eliminate the middleman now? The collective itself? If you're going to abide by this ruling, where the NCAA cannot enforce their own rules anyway.
Yeah, that
and
is
it's
what
name, image, likeness.
That is what Nick Saban in his interview with Chris Lowe hinted at. That he wants to see collectives, what is now the collective, basically be a wing of the university, so that your player payment structure is in the athletic department.
It goes through the program,
goes through them, and that way you can make a tax deductible, gift donation. You can be a donor back to the athletic department and not give it to the collective, and it's all going to the players and facilities and everything else.
But they're
it's all
in
coming out of the same
they're in
place.
control of the stream.
Correct.
They have the ability to turn on and turn off the faucet, and how strong that faucet's going to be.
And they have the ability to decide what market we want to be in for certain players and how
No
much
doubt.
someone's worth to us, whether it be a recruit or someone actively on the roster or someone in the transfer portal from another school. So then what it's all going to lead to is every program needs a general manager. They're going to need someone that's an expert in money allocation, and they're going to need someone that's an expert in talent development or talent going out and getting the talent, basically. Identifying them, knowing how much it's going to cost to get them, and helping the head coach and his staff go out and acquire talent. And talent acquisition is the word I was
going
searching
to
for.
need talent in regards to lawyers and agents, because they need a collective bargaining agreement. That's why the NFL structure is not violating the Sherman Act.
Yep.
Because their structure is collectively bargained.
But the last thing they want is for them to be employees. I don't even know that the players want to be employees right now.
I don't know how you can't just you come up with a way to collectively bargain an agreement and look at them as employees. I mean, to me, it's the only way that you don't end up becoming what the NCAA is right now in regards to the Sherman Act.
Yeah. I'm at on3.com reading that announcement, and the story below that is that Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart just signed an enormous NIL deal with a private jet company.
Well done.
So that's just an illustration of where we are right now.
I wonder if it's the same company.
Jackson Dart is going to be
using.
darting all over the country in a private jet with Nicholas Ayer because they're one of his sponsors now. So
he's the new Caleb Williams.
Can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
No.
It's out now. And thanks to Tennessee, the NCAA is not going to be the one to tell people how to spend their money.
What happens if the money goes through the university? It's funneled through the university, and the players or someone leaks, well, we wanted to give you this, but you're actually getting this percentage. There's a lot going on beneath the surface that it's not just all about the players getting paid.
If that eventually happens,
there's different groups making money too.
If that eventually happens, it would be wise of schools that have a really good, high-functioning collective attached to them, if they just take them in-house.
That's the wing.
Don't try to do it with your own current athletic department. I would just hire the people that have already been doing it. And I'm thinking of the Grove Collective. I'm thinking of Spire Sports in Knoxville. There are some really good buttoned-up collectives out there.
Yes.
I'm hiring them to come in-house if I'm these schools. And Nick Saban's right. Then you can just give your check and donation to the University of Alabama Athletic Scholarship Fund, knowing that all of that's also going to trickle down to players and talent acquisition because it's going to be a part of the NIL group.
And I think it's kind of already happened. The collective and the university are working side by side.
They work side by side
in the program. But isn't this what Texas A&M just tried to do? To funnel through, and then you have the ticket office or whatever, and then you have the tax deductible thing?
And NCAA said no.
No. It was what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, well, it was this past year. I think it was if you gave a donation to the collective had a deal set up with the university to offer premium seating and some seat upgrades, and that was a no-no because you could not entice people with things given by the university or the program.
Yeah, you couldn't go through. This was, in fact, going through the university in some way.
Right.
And now, I mean, it's, again, who's going to enforce anything?
Well, even talking to our, we have friends.
It's going to be two guys.
We have friends at Spire Sports, and
Yes.
we talk to them. They pay for every ticket they have. They get given nothing by the university because of the way the rules are set up. It's not like they're handed over a suite at Thompson Bowling Arena and say, hey, bring all these guys in. You can entertain them in the suite, and we'll give you all these kickbacks and benefits. It doesn't happen that way because they're not allowed to be a part of the university in any way, and the university is not allowed to give offerings to them that they can then turn around and give to players or prospective players.